Hi, we are so excited to join you all today to talk a little bit about growing your social media audience. My name is Ashley Bates. I'm the Media and Communications Manager for Kentucky State University's Land Grant Program, and I'm joined today by Bailey, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Bailey Vandiver, and I am the Media and Communications Editor. So let's get started. So before we even talk about social media, a good foundation is to have a strong website. I know this can seem daunting, but there are lots of platforms that give you a lot of good options. I personally have used WordPress and Squarespace. There are other options like Wix and way more free and paid options out there. So why is a website important? It allows your customers to easily find you and the information they need, and it can be linked on all of your social media platforms, which of course we'll get to in a minute. Think about when you're looking for something and you Google just the name. You want your website to be the first thing that comes up if someone Googles your farm name. And just a quick tip is make sure you update your website frequently. It's never fun to be looking at a website and to see really outdated information on there. So what should your website include? You can keep it as simple as you want. One of the big tips I would have is have a logo, and don't try to do this yourself unless you are a professional designer. Hire someone to do it so that you have something that is really memorable and professional looking. So on your homepage, this will be your customer's first impression of you. So your homepage should be professional and welcoming. And again, keep it simple. You should have your name, a logo, photos, and an easy to navigate menu. So some of the things that the menu should have is an about section. Share the story of your farm. People want to know who you are, what's the history of your land and your farm, who farms with you, things like that to make it personable. You should have information about where your customers can buy your products. So link to the farmers markets you're going to be at, or even sometimes you can have a store on your website itself where people can order from your website. And then you want a contact section. This can include an email address, a phone number, and all your social media platforms as well. So here's a quick example of a really strong website. So I just wanted to point out a few things. This is Happy Jacks. And so they have a little slogan up in the corner, which is also a great option. And it summarizes their business. And then there's a URL that's easy to find. Ideally, your URL should just be your farm name. It has up-to-date information up there at the top. It says we're closed for the winter and see you next spring. So that's perfect. I'm sure they'll be updating that pretty soon. Then it has a simple menu, and you'll see that they have information about how to buy their products, and then they have their About Us section. And then that's a really great logo they have right there in the middle.
All right, so now that we've talked a little bit about websites, and we're going to assume you guys have really great websites already, we're going to talk about social media. And we're going to start out by looking at the different platforms, some of the most common, and how many users they have. So at Facebook, we have 2.9 billion users. On YouTube, we have 2.5 billion users, 1.4 on Instagram, and 436 million on Twitter. So today, we're going to focus on Facebook for a couple of reasons. Facebook is one of the oldest social media platforms that is still used today, and it also has one of the most followers or users on that account. So that's where we're going to focus today. We think that's a good starting point. If you guys have already mastered Facebook, you might want to look into Instagram or maybe even YouTube if you're into creating videos. But like I said, for the purpose of this, we're going to focus on Facebook today. And overall, 69% of U.S. adults say they use Facebook. So over half of the population of the United States that are over the age of 18 say they use Facebook. So who's on Facebook? So 61% of the women in the U.S., and these are adults, say that they are on Facebook. 77% of the men in the U.S. say they're on Facebook. 70% of 18 to 29-year-olds in the United States are on Facebook. 77% of 30 to 49-year-olds, 73% of 50 to 64-year-olds, and 50% of 65-plus-year-olds in the United States are all on Facebook. So these are prime customers, prime folks that you all should be targeting with your ads, your sales, and that sort of thing. Before we get started, we want to think about your purpose. What do you want to achieve with your Facebook page? So Facebook is really great for a few things. One of the things it's really great for is to create a customer base and a sense of community. So social media is a great way to not only engage with your customers, but it's also a great way to interact with grower associations, farm bureaus, departments of agriculture, extension, and other ag organizations. So this is a great way for you to get information out about your farms to these folks and to be able to connect and work with those organizations. It's also a great place to advocate and educate for agriculture. So farm and ranch families comprise less than 2% of the United States population. However, 86% of U.S. ag products are produced on family farms. In a recent survey, 70% of Americans say they purchase, or their decisions for why they purchase, are affected by how the food is grown or raised. So people want to know how their food's being raised and what it's going through before it gets to their plates. So this is a great place for you all to do behind the scenes information and really encourage folks and educate people about what farming is. It's also a great place to share information and updates. Do you all have something come up last minute and your farm stand's going to be closed? This is a great place to share that. It's great to share immediate updates like changes in your hours and weather-related delays. It's a really easy way to get a lot of folks informed, and it's free. So this is a really good plus for lots of small farmers. So a quick tip, make sure your page and posts make it clear how customers can purchase from you. Make it clear what you have available, hours, location, and ways to buy from you. These are all important things that customers need to know. All right, so getting started on Facebook. So we're going to talk about a couple different things today. We're going to really focus on Facebook pages. So most of us probably have a Facebook profile. So a Facebook profile is for people like you and me. This is where we can connect with family, friends, share pictures, share funny stories, that sort of thing on our Facebook profile. With a Facebook profile, users have to request to be our friends, and we have to accept them before they receive the content in our newsfeed, and there's various security settings that allow us to customize who can see what that we post. A Facebook page is a little different. So a Facebook page is for businesses, brands, and organizations. So when someone likes or follows a page on Facebook, they start seeing updates from that page in their feed. So the content on a page, think of it as public. So there's not as many security settings. What you post there, the whole world can see. So the important thing to note is that you must have a profile on Facebook before you can create a page. So what we're going to talk about today are Facebook pages, not profiles, not to be confused. So a quick tip. So what we want to do on our Facebook profiles is we want to cross-post or share pages, or share posts from our pages to our profile. We don't want to duplicate posts, so we don't want to make a post on our profile page that should really be on our Facebook page, if that makes sense. So we don't want to copy the content. We want to share so people can see our page and direct people back to those pages. All right, so the information you need to start a page. So you need a page name. So this is really easy. This is going to be your farm, your business, that name. You're going to need a category. So this could be a little confusing, but I've listed some popular categories that you could select that might describe your farm, and you can search for these too when you're setting up the page. But things like agriculture, farm, urban farm, fish farm, dairy farm, farmer's market, florist, those sort of things, you can select up to 3. Your description, we're going to talk a little bit about that later on, but it's limited to 255 characters, so you have to keep it concise. Your contact information, you can include phone numbers, email addresses, and the website like we talked about earlier. Your location, you have a couple options on this. If you want to include the physical address, you can. You can also only include city and or zip code, so if people know the general area that you're in. And I do want to remind you guys, this is public, so if you don't want people having your home address, it would probably be better to just use your city or zip code so it's a relative location. Your profile picture. So for that, a logo or an identifiable farm feature is best. We want something that's clear, that's able to brand your farm. Your cover photo, some good suggestions for that would be like product photos, farm family photos, seasonal photos, that sort of thing. So this is just a little bit, the next few slides are going to be screenshots of what you will see when you're creating your page. So if you see in your top corner here, it's asking for a page name. Here's those categories I talked about where you can select up to 3. And then we have a little description here about our research and demonstration farm. That's all you really need, essentially, to create your page. This shows you where you get to the point where you have your images. So that's where you add your profile picture, which you can change and update, and your cover photo. All of this information can be changed and updated in the About section of your Facebook page.
Okay, so you've got the page created, and then you still have to manage your page from there. So I just wanted to point out, because it can be a little bit hidden, when you need to go to your page, when you're on your desktop view, you'll have a menu in the upper left corner. It'll have your name at the top, so there's my name. And then the pages is where you then find your page to manage. It'll be similar on mobile. Normally on the app, you have a menu in the bottom right corner, and then you'll find your page from there. Once you're on your page, there's a menu on the left side that says, that allows you to manage your page. So you can update things, you can see what messages you have, all of those things. And it's normally pretty self-explanatory. Often Facebook, when you go to your page, will pop up and say, hey, do you want to update your profile picture? Hey, do you want to add this information? So it's actually prompting you a lot of what they want you to add to your page to make sure it's robust and fully informational. So we want to talk a little bit about the type of content you can post on Facebook, what you need to include, and what serves what purpose best. So probably the most common is a Facebook post, which are public messages posted to your entire audience. And those posts will stay up indefinitely. You can delete them, but they will stay on your feed forever. When someone goes to your page, they'll see it. So the Facebook post can include a lot of things, text, photos, video, links, and we want to stress that all of the things that go in a single post should be cohesive. Don't clutter a post with too much or have, your text be about one thing and your photo be of something completely different. A few other tips that are a little bit more advanced, you can pay to boost a post, so it's like an ad that will put it in the feed of someone who doesn't follow you. So that is something you can explore, but we're not going to go into that too much today. And then you can also schedule your posts ahead of time using Meta Business Suite within Facebook, or there's an external tool for this called Hootsuite that we use that's really helpful. A quick tip, because I've made this mistake as a social media manager, before you post, make sure you're double checking whether you're posting as yourself or as the page, because you don't want to post, a picture of your grandkids to your farm page unless that's what you mean to do. So Facebook stories, these are another option of content you can post. They're vertical photos or short videos that only appear on your page for 24 hours. So they will disappear after 24 hours. On your news feed, those stories will be viewed at the top of the screen. Stories are easier to share via a mobile device, and you can also post from a mobile device or your desktop. Stories, in my opinion, on Facebook are a little less viewed than posts. So content that might be good to post on stories is less formal content, something fun like a little video or a photo of outside your window view or something like that. And then content that is important now but won't be relevant after a day, because then people can view it for the day that it's up and then it'll disappear, and it's not really something that people would want to look back at. Stories are a great place to explore doing short videos, which you can just record on your smartphone. And then Facebook events are a really great tool. We especially use Facebook events all the time for the land grant program. So they're useful for promoting special events such as field days, market days, festivals. They're searchable and shareable, so it's really easy for you to share it to your private or to your personal page, for other people to share it, and really spread the word about your events. And a really great feature too is that if a person RSVPs to your event, they will get reminders so that they will not forget the event, and they'll have all the information they need. So here's a quick rundown of the information you need to set up an event. So you're going to need to name it, put the date and time info, of course, have a cover photo, make sure this is relevant to the event. We often make flyers, but that's something that doesn't have to be done. Your location, a description of the event, and if there's some sort of ticket or registration information, you can link to that. And a quick tip we have on that is that the site Eventbrite works really well for ticket sales. And then if you create that event on Eventbrite, you can just link that right in the Facebook event. Okay, so a few examples about the types of content, and you'll see that these are all posts, and so there's kind of different kind of posts we want to highlight. We're highlighting Salad Days Farm because we think they do a really good job on their social media, and they have several platforms: Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok. So one example of types of posts is business posts. So these are directly related to the products you're selling. So you'll see that this shows a product, cilantro, and the information in the text shows when they'll be selling it and where. Informational posts, that's kind of, if you'll remember, we talked about a purpose of social media being to educate or advocate about agriculture. So that's where these informational posts come in. So you can teach your followers something about agriculture, being a farmer, having a garden, etc. So in this post, Salad Days Farm is talking about storing vegetables. And there was a photo with that too. For space, I didn't include it, but I want to point out photos are always great to have with posts. And then on the right side, we have just fun, cute animals, fun facts, anything like that, asking questions for engagement. So you want to keep a good balance of all of these things. Of course, you want to make a profit, so you want to have a good amount of asking for people's business. But you also want to have these other purposes as well mixed in there. Okay, so now we have some general content tips for your posts. I'm a copy editor, so of course I'm going to stress the importance of grammar. Make sure you proofread. So we all know social media etiquette. They're not expecting you to be perfect. They're not going to unfollow you because of a typo. But they might unfollow you if your content is consistently hard to read. So make sure you're checking spelling and punctuation to make sure that whatever your point is, it comes across, even if there's a typo every once in a while. So when we talk about social media, we also talk about engagement a lot. You want your followers to engage with your posts, not just see it. So that would be likes, comments, shares. So one strategy to increase engagement is to ask questions. What are you planting in your garden this year? What do you want to learn more about that we can post about in the future? Things like that, so that you're actively encouraging participation with your posts. And then another thing with engagement is shares, which is another option that people can do with your posts, as we've already mentioned. They're really great for your content because that's typically going to bring you in new followers and new customers. And then another important point is being responsive on your page. Respond to the comments on your posts. Respond to messages you get. And a tip for the messages is you can set up an automated message reply so that you can say, they'll automatically get a response that might say, hey, I make it a point to respond within a day. I'll get to your message as soon as I can. So as we've already mentioned, photos are a really important part of a post or a story or whatever you're posting. So we want to stress how important it is that these are good photos. I know this can sound daunting. I'm not a photographer. That's why we're having people who are not photographers explain this rather than our very talented photography staff. Before we get into this, I want to thank our photo staff here at the Land Grant Program and David Stevenson at the University of Kentucky, who was my professor in college, for these tips and photos as examples. So like I said, you can do this really simply just with your smartphone. And so that's where we're going to run through a few tips just to make your photos that much stronger for your social media. So some general tips. The most important part of a photo is the content. You want to be taking photos of things that are interesting, appealing, and important to your audience. So that's the number one thing. But you can have really great content and still take a not great photo. So that's why we're going to talk about some of our other tips. So one tip is to put more faces in your photos. I love this picture of a student here at KSU and a goat. When I say faces, I mean human faces or animal faces. If you're using a smartphone, which I assume a lot of you are, to take your photos, don't zoom because that creates blur and just a lower quality photo. Move closer to what you're taking a photo of instead. And then also take lots of photos. Don't just click the button once and assume you got what you wanted. Take a lot, and then later when you're ready to post, you can pick which one is best. This is especially true if you're taking photos of something that has action or faces, because someone can be making a weird face in one photo and then have a smile or something in the next. So a few quick tips, and like I said, we're keeping this simple, but the rule of thirds is a really important component that photographers use. So if you see this grid we have here, it splits the screen into three lines, vertically and horizontally. So where these dots are at the intersection of the lines are where you want to put the main part of your photo, because that's where you're going to draw the viewer's attention. So in this photo, of course, the flower is at one of the intersection points. Another tip for composition, eliminate distractions from your main subject. Just like you don't want your post to be cluttered, you don't want your photo to be cluttered with a lot of extra people or something that might be kind of ugly in the background of your photo that would distract from what you're trying to highlight. So really just a quick tip about light, because this can get very complicated with external lighting sources and everything. But just one quick tip, when you're using a smartphone, tapping on your subject, whether that's a person's face or a flower or whatever it may be, will help you light your subject correctly. And that's just one really simple thing that won't fix everything, but will help. And then lastly, we want to talk about perspective. You don't want to take all of your photos from 3 feet away from your subject, where all your photos are going to look the same no matter what's in it. There's a few different ways, and there's way more than this, but here are a few different ways that you can change up the perspective of your photos to make your post more interesting. So in that first one, you can see the camera and the photographer are lower to the ground, whereas in the other one, the camera is higher up, so that just gives you a different look. And then one that I really enjoy is using leading lines. So you see in that photo, the road is guiding your attention, as are the truck's headlights.
All right, so we have touched a little bit on a lot of things today, and we know we have not covered everything, but we want to leave you with a couple last tools of the trade that we use and we really like. So one of the main things we like to use for creating our custom graphics, so this is what we use for flyers, event covers, page cover photos, all that sort of stuff, is Canva. So it's canva.com. They have a free and a paid version that you can look at, and it's a really easy to use graphic design software for folks that don't really know what they're doing. They provide a lot of templates and things that make it easy and user friendly to do. Eventbrite, we mentioned earlier, it's great for selling event tickets and marketing events. It is free to use for events with no ticket price, but if you are charging a ticket price, there is a fee based off of that price. And lastly, we wanted to include Hootsuite. So this is a platform that lets you plan and schedule posts. So we know you guys are busy, we know you're out in the fields, we know you're doing all this work, and it's not always easy to build in daily time to post on social media. But Hootsuite could allow you to do on like a Saturday afternoon when you don't have a lot going on, you can build out posts for an entire week, an entire month, as far in advance as you want to on Hootsuite, and this is a good platform to do so. Again, there are free and paid versions available of that. Thanks for joining us today. I know we haven't told you all everything there is to know about Facebook or these other social media platforms, but I hope we gave you some good tips and some things to get you started. If you have other questions or need further assistance with this, feel free to reach out to us. My name is Ashley Bates again, and my email is ashley.bates@kysu.edu.
And you can reach out to me as well, bailey.vandiver@kysu.edu. Thanks for joining us today.